college football is completely different than it was. Like, I don't know that any sport has ever changed more in 1 year than college football did. The WNBA feels super different than it did before because people are paying so much more attention to it. But the truth is, it isn't that different. It's the same league. It's the same teams. They're playing the same games. They're playing the same sport. College football is radically different, markedly different. The 12-team playoff, the new conferences. There were things that I found out because I was going through notes and getting ready for this. I just don't know that all the fans are aware of this. Bubba and Cam, we are professional sports people, right? We work in the sports media. We know this stuff. Do you know how the SEC is going to choose its champion this year as opposed to previous years?
I do not know.
Yes. The SEC no longer has divisions. The SEC no longer has an East and a West. The SEC has 16 teams. All the teams will play their schedules, which will not be based on divisions because there aren't any anymore. And the top 2 teams will play each other in the SEC championship game, just as has been the case in the Big 12 for the last couple of years. The same is true of the Big 10, which now also has USC and UCLA and all these new Washington and all these new schools that we have in the Big 10. So the first and second place teams are going to play each other. So we very much are living in a world. Let's just use the favorites. So Georgia and Texas. Georgia and Texas are the betting favorite and the next favorite to win the SEC this year. Georgia and Texas could very, very easily play each other 3 times this year. Well, let me confirm that. Do Georgia and Texas play each other in the regular season? I'm pretty sure they do, but they would have to play each other in the regular season for this to work out. But the bottom line it is, if they play each other in the regular season, and let's live in a world where the team that loses that game doesn't lose any other games, they wind up playing each other again for the the SEC championship. And then both of them almost assuredly, the first and second place teams from the SEC are going to make the 12-team playoff. So they could easily wind up playing each other a third time. So we could be living in a world where, I'm just making these up now, Michigan and Ohio State, Georgia and Alabama, Georgia and Texas, or anyone else you want from those 2 conferences could very well wind up playing each other 3 times this year.
Yeah, Georgia plays Texas at Texas, October 19th.
And they play Alabama, too.
Yep, Georgia, Alabama, September 28th.
So either of those could happen. Yep. Like either of those 2 could happen. And so could any of these other considerations. By the way, the system is also set up in such a way that the SEC and or the Big Ten, they're interchangeable with each other now as far as I'm concerned, as far as the dominance of their respective conferences. They aren't going to get more than 4 teams into this playoff, regardless of how many they should, because you're going to have the top 5 conference champions. So you're going to have the conference champions of the SEC, the Big Ten, the ACC, the Big 12, and the number 1 ranked Group of 5 champion. They're getting automatic bids, those 5, into the 12-team playoff. And then the next 7 best teams. So let's assume that those conference champions, one of them is the champion of the SEC. That means that, or the Big Ten, again, I'll keep using them interchangeably, but I'm just for the purposes of this exercise going to keep saying SEC. There are 7 slots left. How many of those are you going to give to teams in any one conference? Are you going to give 3 of the 7? That would give you 4. Are you going to give 4 of the 7? Are you going to give 5 of the 7? Listen to this. Heather Dinich told me this on TV today, guys. When last season ended, before the 14 playoff began, if the criteria that will be applied this coming year had been applied to last season, at the end of the regular season, of the 12 teams that would have been in the playoff, take a guess, Cam, how many of them currently reside, meaning now reside, in the Big Ten plus the SEC of the 12?
8 or 9?
The answer is 10.
Sheesh.
10 of the teams
All right.
would have been. So here's what we'll never have again. We'll never have Florida State again. We will never have an unbeaten conference champion that has absolutely every right to demand a spot that doesn't get in. That will never happen again. Florida State will be the last team, unfortunately for them, ever to be put in that position. But What will now happen is you're going to have the fourth best team in the Big Ten is going to be competing for spots with teams all over the place. It's going to be fascinating to watch. But I think the max, realistically, that any conference could possibly get in is 5. And I think more realistically is 4. I think we could live in a world where 4 Big Ten teams and 4 SEC teams wind up making up 8 of the 12 teams that make the playoff.